Hi, I am your host, Danielle Smith.
And my name's Danny Tivalu, and welcome to our podcast.
It's Glow Time.
We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Yugambeh and Komameri people, and pay our respects for elders past, present and emerging, acknowledging that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to our first episode interviewing the lovely Kirsty Higgison. Did I say your name right?
Yeah, Higgison. Yep. Yeah.
I got really paranoid then.
I was like Kirsty all the time, so it's like Kirsty's. Yep.
Oh yeah.
I'll take any name.
Yeah. I know, and the classic like, oh no. I was like, now I'm introducing someone.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you. You're our first guest on the show. Thanks for coming along.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you for coming on.
So for those of you who don't know Kirsty, she is a Ironwoman, Nutri-Grain Ironwoman, which is so amazing. I used to do surf life saving and really like looked up to like everyone who's like, wow, they're so incredible.
I still do.
Yeah.
Like full fangirl.
Yeah. And you're also studying to be a teacher.
Yep.
And yeah, I suppose we're going to learn a whole heap more about you. I'm really excited to hear like your journey through like surf life saving, like being, I suppose, a professional athlete. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so to start, did you want to tell us a little bit about yourself to paint a picture for everybody? Yeah.
Sure. Well, I can go like right back if you want, or just
yeah. Let's do that.
So,
if that's where you first go to,
yeah,
cool.
With that. Yeah. So as Denny said, that I'm a surf Ironwoman. I live on the coast, Goldie. I've lived here for like 5-ish years now, but I'm originally from the south coast of New South Wales, so kind of near that Jervis Bay area.
Oh, I love Jervis Bay.
Yeah, beautiful. So I'm from Coolangatta Beach.
So beautiful there.
So beautiful. So I'm like super biased, but probably my favorite part of the world. Like just love home, just that beautiful coast that hits the ocean, like just farmland, like just really, really beautiful. Super lucky growing up there, had like this best childhood, like just living at the beach, riding your bikes, like just super, super fun. So I started Nippers sort of around that 10, 11 age. Yeah. And have always been super active, sporty. Like we played tennis and basketball, did heaps of dancing, swimming, like surfing, like just super, super active. And I guess growing up watching the Nutri-Grain or the Iron series on the TV on the weekend, I was like, oh man, that's super cool. And at that time they all had my name, like Kirsty, Christy, Crystals. I was like,
you're like, it's
me. I know. It's like, this is me. This is my sport. So at a young age, I was like, I am doing this. So I pretty much just chased that. I've always been in the surf, doing that, and then also did sprint kayaking. I started maybe I was like 15 just to complement. So for those who don't know, surf Ironwoman, you have 4 legs. Your swim leg, a board leg, which is like your paddle board, and then your ski leg, which is kind of like a kayak, and then you have a run leg in between. So for me, for my ski leg, the sprint kayaking side, it really complements it. So that's where a lot of, particularly at a young age too, hopping on the ski, it's quite heavy. So for younger competitors, it's quite good to start them on the kayak.
Because how much does a ski weigh?
About 18 kilos.
And what about your paddle boards? Because they're kind of,
I think it's like 6-7 kilos. Yeah.
When you're talking about it, it just always blows my mind. Like, you guys are the most like multidisciplined athletes.
It takes so much skill for like each thing.
Yeah. I love it. I think that's why I like it, because it's just variety. I've always been one for variety, which also sometimes can be a little bit of my downfall because I just love doing so much.
Then you're well suited to your sport.
Which I love. And I think growing up in the surf, that is my, I guess, what I'm good at is surf skills. Like coming from a small coastal town, like population 3,000-4,000, like that's all we did was just surf, spend so much time in the surf. So I guess compared to a lot of the kids that were really into it at a young age. It was like super hard training, a lot of sim training, when for me, I didn't start till a little bit later. Mum and dad, I'm super lucky. Mum and dad never pushed me. It was all just from me and what I wanted to do. I was just super lucky. And also my dad and like pops had a pretty good support network. They just took me training, and it was up to me to go. So as well, like my mum, she's an Olympic silver medalist in swimming as well.
Holy dollies.
So I guess for me,
did she
84.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so she was 18 and won silver in 200 butterfly.
Wow.
Yeah,
and
so
butterfly's so hard.
So
as
hard.
well.
So what is she thinking? So I think from a young age too, I'd always wanted to just achieve something in sport. And a way, like looking back now, I've just done like a lot of like personal development work. I guess we'll delve into a little bit later. But from a young age, being told to like, oh, you're just going to do what your mum does, or like people like, oh, you're following in your mum's footsteps, or starting to get into sport. They're like, I felt like I had to almost prove yourself.
So did you feel that pressure from a young age?
Yes.
Do you think that inhibited you from succeeding in certain areas or in sport, or do you think you used
just
it as like
a drive?
Yeah.
Going like, I want to be really good at sport, just because mum was really good. I was like, I want to be just as good,
because it can work both ways sometimes.
Yes.
Like if you have like a successful father or mother as an athlete, it's like it can you feel the pressure and you don't you like fall apart pressure.
Yes.
So it's so cool that you were able just to dig deep somewhere and find that, just to get that drive to be like, no, I've got this. I can do this.
I think too. And then that constantly that condition of being told also from like people being a small coastal town, like you're like quite a big fish in a little bowl. So people, we're 5-6 generations from the same town, we're quite well, so people were just like, oh yeah, you'll be like your mum, or
so
like
they're projecting their expectations onto you all the time.
That's what I was looking for.
That's like, I was like, whoa. So all the time people are going, oh, you're going to be this, you're going to be that, and you're like,
you start to believe it.
Like, what went through your head with like all that? Hard. Or was it like a whole process? Or?
You don't like, at the time, I guess being quite young, you don't think of that. It's not till
unconscious.
now that you really go back through it and unpack a lot of things. And that's why I've been super thankful. I've had like the last season off competing, and I've gone through so much just clearing and development work and like going through that kind of stuff. But I was like, go back to diverted.
We're all about segues in this podcast.
So I did sprint kayaking for like just 4 or 5 years, and made I was super lucky. I made 3 Australian teams and raced overseas at Worlds and like Youth Olympics. It went really well there, and then I thought, oh, this is like I can work really hard here. I can go to the Olympics like mum. But the I just didn't have that passion that I did for surf, and that's my love. Like I love the ocean. Like growing up on the coast, being in the surf. It was so funny. I had one coach who I was living with a family at a time who told like you have to hide their surfboards because they are surfing too much and it's detrimental to their training. Like I would just like loved being in the ocean surfing.
And then to give everyone an idea of like your training schedule when you're on season. So like how many hours, or what's your week look like when you're in a competitive season?
So I guess the last sort of 9-10 years it's consisted of sort of that 2 to 3 sessions a day, and then 1 Saturday. So it's usually swim training at 5, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday and Saturday morning are our iron sessions, which are like all legs.
And how long would those sessions last for?
Pools usually like an hour and a half. Same iron sessions during, I guess, the lead up to season's a bit longer, dependent on if you're going to do the Coolangatta Gold, which is like a super long race.
How long's that? How many hours is that?
It's like the marathon version of surf lifesaving.
It's like 20 odd something K ski. Like it's long.
It's enough.
Oh my God. You should see my face reaction. I forgot we're on a podcast, but my face says it all. Oh my God.
I've done it a few times.
Holy
and
moly.
It's just one of those things that you do, and it's almost like not a bucket list thing, but it's just such a great experience. You learn so much about yourself. And when you're in the race, it's so cool because you have a huge support team. So they see you after each leg and they'll be running alongside you, giving you nutrition and hydration and cheering you on. And it's cool. Super cool.
It's like, a really like even everyone who knows it's like, even people who aren't even that into surf lifesaving, when they see the Coolangatta Gold on, it's just like when you see the marathon, you're just like, yes, go you. Yes. You're a legend.
It's like, so cool. And it's almost like when you're not in it and you almost feel like that, is it FOMO if you're missing out on that? It's like, oh, I'm actually like, as much as like the pain of training and that race, it's like, oh, but it's just such a cool feeling, especially when you finish, you're like, I've just achieved something huge, like regardless of the result. It's such a huge feat. So
in like during the race and during that amount of time that you're going through, like what moments like take place, and then like, so when do you have the feeling of like, oh, I'm just gonna, I just need to give up, or like is it more just, like how do you get yourself out of those negative self-talk moments? I feel like because I've had such I wouldn't say tough, but a lot of challenges, particularly growing up in that small coastal town. Like I used to come home from school, train by myself. Everything was pretty much done by myself. The year before I moved up, I was still in year 12, and I used to call my coach who was on the Sunshine Coast. We'd made the decision to move up there, and I'd get my program Sunday night, call him, and then literally come home from school, train solo. Like my sister sometimes come down, like my mum like would walk down with an umbrella. Like she had work off and train. And or like running sometimes, because anyone from like the South Coast knows how bad our roads are. So sometimes if Dad got home from work, he used to follow me in a car, like because the street lights weren't good or there'd be too many potholes, I'd like break an ankle. So like times like that where it's just even for kayaking as well, like I used to travel an hour plus after school some afternoons to go up north to train with my coach for kayaking, and then trying to do that we've got a little lake there, so I used to just, especially when I had my license, it was the best thing. You just drive. It was like, especially being a small coastal town, everything's quite far away.
It just makes being in a regional parts of Australia can make it so hard for people to access going somewhere in a sport. It's not like, because like I suppose particularly with surf lifesaving, I feel like the Gold Coast and like the major cities on the East Coast and like, some Perth maybe are key areas, but like that, I can't believe you did all that training yourself. Without a team, or without a club.
There was really, so I had my club was Warilla Barry Point, so I was with Nowcobburra, which is my little town, and then we made the decision to move my competition rights with Warilla, so I could do team events. So they were like an hour north, so some afternoons we'd travel up there. I guess that whole just in elements too, like in winter down there, it is so cold.
Oh my God.
Like freezing. And then swim training in the morning. Oh my gosh. Like looking back now, our little swim squad was just of adult triathletes and young kids. It was just like a mix of just fun. And our coach, like Julie, she was beautiful and just used to throw us these hilarious sets. And that time, like my mum was still swimming, so she would swim train with me. She would get me up in the mornings. Awesome. Like it was super fun. Like just you look back now and think it was a cool little community we had. So I guess going through all that, I'm super lucky and thankful that I experienced all that tough times, because like you were saying, when you're in those moments, you're just like, oh my gosh, like 15, 16-year-old me had it so much tougher. Like I'm up here training in warm water, like the climate's so nice. Like I think that particularly, and then having to really work for things and having so many setbacks that when opportunities arise, you are so thankful for them.
Just have that sense of gratitude.
So during the race, it's just it's a bit weird, but you kind of like that hurt. It's like
because you chose that hurt.
You chose it, and
you
like
have a different relationship to pain. It's like pushing, because there's a difference between injured pain and then that that finding your threshold, finding your edge, and
which has also been a challenge through the years. I just think having that and going to those places, it's like not many people get to experience that, and I like that because it's huge growth. Like you're in the middle of the race And then you have all these self-talk, like, what are you doing? Like,
oh my gosh,
yeah. People spend like thousands of dollars going to, therapy and, healing sessions, whereas as an athlete, like an elite athlete, you'd be taking your body to these extremes that you would have all these moments of like, actually embodying these limiting conditioning beliefs and pushing through.
Yeah.
So
you go a little bit crazy.
No, I can fully, like, honestly, I think it's that when you're in that sweet spot for growth, because this is again where educational psychology comes into it. You need to be at a point where you feel safe enough to be challenged and be out of your depth. And like, I experienced the same thing in my head when I first started gigging. I'd be playing and the whole time I'm like, I sound shit.
Yeah.
Everyone hates me here. Like all this stuff. And then I realized at one point, I'm like, this is actually just me in my head. Yeah. I'm being really mean to myself.
Yeah. Mean girl activated.
And I was just like, oh, whoa, is this going on? Like, it was this clarifying moment. I'm like, this goes on in my head, like, whoa. And like, so it's like, but because I forced myself into this situation that was kind of scary, but I had to do it, which is probably like same as the Coolangatta Gold and like your races, like, is really scary, but you had to do it.
Yeah.
There's something inside you. Yeah.
I felt that the same when I when I first started running workshops. Like, I would be, in front of people, and then in my head I'd be like, they don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. They don't understand me. They don't understand me. And then I just feel myself spiraling out of control. But I'm like, no, you know your stuff. You've done the work. Like, but it's like you're in the moment of like combat with yourself and your mind, and it's so powerful, and it can spiral you out of control.
So spiral. And that's what I've experienced the last, I guess, 5-6 years is that like going too far where you're like too critical, and I'm a perfectionist and having those dark thoughts, and I've just like come through like a full circle, I guess, of experiencing so much growth. But there are times like that where it's just so dark, and particularly to our sport is quite an individual sport, so you are quite isolated, I guess, or by yourself. Yes, you train in a team, but like you're spending hours in the pool, hours on the ski board, like you're just pretty much solo.
With your own thoughts.
Yeah, with your own thoughts, and you go a little bit crazy.
Yeah, even just like there's no one when you go out in a big day. Yeah, you're the only person who's getting yourself out the back.
Yeah,
like that's an insane thing. Like, I just think like you're the one who's got to get through that break.
Yeah, and I think it's also that surrender to the ocean as well. Like you've got to trust that you are capable of handling what that throws at you, and you don't know what it's going to throw at you that day. So it's that whole connection to nature and trust in that environment as well, out of your control. And as a perfectionist, I think you are so obsessed with control, and so having to let that go is enough growth and experience as well.
And I think that's what I like about the sport is any day you can rock up and it'd be so different. Like you don't know the elements, like you've got the wind, the tide, like the swell, and how like big the swell is, like the distance, the period of the swell, like there are so many different little things that go into it. So when you rock up, it's like, okay, cool. You're very humbled, I guess, by the ocean. It's like there are days that you think, oh yeah, I'm going to nail it, and you get smashed. Like going out and you're like, okay, cool.
I suppose it'd also be an exercise around ego, because the ocean is the queen, the mother.
Gosh, yeah. Constantly. When I feel like for me, I guess growing up and having high expectations and coming from a small coastal town, I was so critical of myself, and I didn't have much self-belief, which I guess is quite, I guess people think funny. Think, oh, she's so happy and positive, but I was so self-critical and had really low self-esteem, and I achieved so many wonderful results, and I find it, even now looking back, I find it quite hard to look back at photos in those times, because I know mentally like how much hurt and what I was going through was quite tough.
So do you feel you didn't do you think it was because you felt you achieved it for maybe the wrong reasons, or what do you think it was?
I think just trying to live up to expectations, and that constant of it's not good enough. That's huge. Perfectionism, like not being good enough. Like, okay, cool, I won this race, but what's next? Like, I could have done this better, could have done that better. And particularly in our sport, sometimes can be a bit of an old school mentality where results define you. And if you're not performing, then you're not a good person. And that's my biggest thing, is I've attached my sense of self to Kirsty the athlete, and trying to pull that apart and going, no, like, I'm Kirsty, the person, and I have lots of different cool elements about me. Like, sport doesn't define who I am. It's just something that I do. And I think growing up doing that, being that athlete mindset for such an extended period of time, and having people tell you like, oh, you're going to be so good at this, or wanting to please people as well. And I guess it's just like a habit. It's like ingrained, like unconscious. It's in your head, and you don't ever challenge that until I guess the last sort of 12, 18 months. I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, I am going loopy. Like I'm doing something that I love, but I'm not enjoying it. Like, why? Yeah, I'm sad all the time. Like, I'm so anxious all the time. I can't keep living like this, because I'm not only, I guess, for myself, but my people around me. Like, it's affecting them too. Yeah.
So how do you think you got to that feeling of happiness and enjoyment now? And are you at that point? Do you feel you've got that back?
So it's been like a huge, do you want me to go into it?
Go, delve in.
So I think moving out of home. So once I'd finished high school, I made the decision to move up to the Sunshine Coast to be with the coach Michael King up there.
Which club? That's
Mooloolaba.
Yeah.
We were at the stage, and I remember the first day I was so starstruck. Like, I remember seeing
that's like Ali Day,
like
the big stars,
like Matt Poole and like Joshie Minogue was there. I was like, oh my gosh, like these are my childhood idols.
You're my hero.
And you're now training with them.
Yeah, and I was such a shy little country girl, like so timid, like wouldn't speak, like just would always put my head down and get the work done. But at the same time, I was like, oh, I would just never be that good. Like, going from a little, I guess, sheltered environment to thrown right in the deep end, and it was crazy. Like, I'd never experienced training in squads like that before.
Especially like such a contrast. Like, you had
such
this
a contrast,
like, beautiful, like almost motley crew of people for your swim. Like, everyone's just like, we just all swim together because we all live here.
Yeah, I was in the lane next to me.
I
know. Driving the car next
like
to me.
it's so good. And then going to from like, that to like, I'm up there pretty much by myself. Like, I was so thankful I moved in with family friends. So they'd lived in the same town as me, and they'd moved up 12 months before. So it was super cool. I was like so thankful living with them for 6 months, because it just made that transition a lot easier. I was like, oh, there's a piece of home here. But I guess going from training sort of as much as I could and not really having a huge base, just purely because of limited resources, like, you do as best as you can, and then you get thrown in the deep end. I remember my first swim session, the coach came up to me and he's like, okay, we're doing 8K this morning in the pool. And I thought he was joking. And I was like,
how many Ks would you have done previously?
Oh, like 3, 4 max.
Jesus.
Like,
oh my
max.
God.
And you're just like, this is like next level.
Really next level. Like,
I cry when I make myself do a K on the keyboard. With flippers.
With tears.
I still don't like kick. Like, oh, so funny. So I think going from that to then that, and just going, oh, this is so much hard work. Like, I'm so far behind already. And then that first year, I hardly spoke to my coach. Like, I was just in that environment. I was trying to count in my head. We had like potentially 10 athletes in the Nutri series at that point. So it was a very highly competitive environment, and everyone's fighting for the coach's time. And for someone like me, such a quiet country girl, I really never went to the coach. I was just, and
he's probably like, who was so inundated with athletes' needs.
Athletes' needs.
It's like
I'm the bottom of the pile.
Though.
Yeah, it's
like this quiet wallflower is happy and not asking for anything. Generally you're just like, okay,
it's like, who is this like blowing quiet little country girl like trying to make it the big smoke? So I just was like, okay, I'll go train and keep my head down, like don't say anything. That whole year I only missed 1 training session. Like, that's outrageous now looking back, going, how the hell did I don't
want to think about how many kilometers you swim. I was just on that year, like, holy dooly.
It was only because the coach told me to go home because I was so sick. I was so scared of missing training and just having to perform my best, like that constant over your head, being in like performance mode, so competitive. And just the environment too, it was quite toxic. Like there was a lot of backstabbing, a lot of bitchiness, and all I wanted to do was just keep in my little sheltered bubble. Like I struggled.
It sounded like quite like fight or flight
constantly,
to be honest. Like, it's like,
yes. And I've constantly lived in that fight or flight state for the last
and you're constantly activating that as well when you're training, because that's
when you're training,
so you're always in that.
Did you just sleep like?
Yeah.
Oh.
I love my nap. I'm a sleep enthusiast. Love me a nap. So I think being in that, and there was a lot of tension between a lot of athletes, and I hadn't experienced that before. I hadn't, particularly training with other females too. I just couldn't cope. I didn't know how to cope. Because I'm super friendly. I love making friends with everyone. I love getting along with people, getting to know people. So coming up against that was really challenging, to the point where it's like, if you're going really well at training, like people wouldn't talk to you. It's like, now, because I started to improve.
Now you're competition.
And now I'm competition. Now I'm a threat. And I couldn't cope. I was like, what have I done wrong? Like I couldn't understand it. And thankfully, like in hindsight, looking back now, Mooloolaba ended up going through, it kind of capitulated. So the coach left, everything sort of fell through, and it was probably the best thing that happened, honestly. Kind of everyone just a full rebuild. Mum and dad had just moved up at that stage, and I was studying at uni. I think it was like first or second year. And there was a chance for me to move to the Gold Coast, and I was like, no, like family's just here. I just can't go through all that again. So I ended up staying, and it was, I had gone through a lot of like mental prior to that too. I just qualified for the series.
Oh wow,
which is huge.
Like
huge.
That's like your childhood dreams.
Yeah, childhood dreams.
Like you get to train with your heroes, and then you're like, I'm amongst them.
Yeah, it was like insane.
Like you get the togs.
So the last 2 seasons prior to that, I just missed out on the qualifying. Like I missed out on a count back, equal spot count back for 2 seasons in a row. So I knew I was like kind of there, but not really there. And then I ended up winning the trial to get in, for like through Summer Surf, which is like, I think we had 4 or 5 rounds, and I had won the point score to make it.
And what year was that?
14, 15, I think.
Wow.
From memory.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
That far away ago.
Yeah.
So I think I was 21 when I qualified.
Wow.
Which
so cool.
Which is super cool. It's crazy to think now we have so many young girls coming through qualifying. Like that's insane. It's super cool. So once I had qualified, I was like, childhood dream, like so over the moon, but at the same time it's like, I don't think I'm ready. Like that constant like, these girls are still my idols. Like I just saw myself as so far below them.
Still saw yourself as a little girl.
And I was like, man, like I can push it with them at training. Like looking back now, I was like, oh, I wish I could just hug her and just go, oh man, like you're doing so good.
You're a champion. Like you did it.
So I'd stayed on the sunny coast and ended up moving to Noosa, and that was just, it was super fun year. It was just I'd moved swim coaches and was training like crazy. I look back now, like crazy amounts. We were doing like minimum 6.5K, 7K, 5 mornings a week, because we were training with long distance pool swimmers, which was super good for me because I hadn't had a huge pool base. So I really needed, because that's one thing in our sport where if you have come from a pool background or are strong in the swimming area, you do really well.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a huge area I really needed to work on, because I wasn't up to scratch compared to the other girls. So I was super lucky. I've loved my swim squad. And then I was traveling to Noosa, which is like 45 minutes plus, because then you got to park and then like Noosa. Most afternoons. And that in itself was just super fun. Like it was so authentic. It was such a small squad, but everyone was like family. It was just
like a fresh air for you.
Fresh air, like such a contrast. And like back home, run me off like a little country, like just fun squad.
Yeah.
And I loved it. I had so much fun. And I remember leading into the series, I was like, having meltdowns like on the beach, watching the people trial to get into that year's series and going, Mum and Dad, like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Like they all look so fit. Like what's going on? Like, oh, I don't think I'm ready for this. And then that year I ended up winning 3 of the 6 rounds and finished like runner up in my first year, which is like wild.
Completely blitzed.
Which is so wild. Like the first race I did, I ended up winning it. And I remember swimming alongside like Liz Plumers, who's one of my childhood idols.
And she's won how many Coolie Golds and like
ridiculous.
how many? Yeah. So just like
it's like champion of the sport.
Yeah.
And I was swimming alongside her coming into the final leg, going, keep it cool, like it's okay, like we're feeling good, like this is all sweet. And then I just managed to crack a little body surf wave and just got up to the shore and just jumped up and like ran, like sprinted, because I remember the year before at state, it was a sprint finish for the state title, and I ended up coming over second. But I got mowed down because I'm a slow runner.
You weren't going to make that mistake this year.
So I got up and I just ran, and I remember crossing the line, waiting for someone to have passed me, and no one passed me. And the photo of me is just like pure shock.
Disbelief.
Disbelief. It's like, what just happened?
What was going through your head when you were running, when you were sprinting?
Like, I remember hearing people cheer and just thinking like, don't stop now, just keep running, like just throw everything at it. And then you look back, like there was no one beside me, so I was fine.
But that's
like,
also what it could have been, like a good motivated for you to think like, oh, someone's on my tail, someone's on my tail.
I know. I was like, don't do it again. Like, I just was like, what just happened? Like, how? Like, just huge disbelief.
So then did you start to believe from that moment that you're worthy?
Oh, no.
Like,
yes and no.
It was just your head game didn't change.
It was just like,
that.
it's a fluke, like fully fluke. Like I fluked it. Like, how can you be in your first year of your series and you've won the first race? Like, that's a fluke. Like, no.
Someone's had a bad day.
Someone's had a bad day. Like, you've just gotten lucky. Like, I think that's a big thing.
Or like, you got the waves or something like that. Yeah.
And so the next day we had to race again. So it was like back-to-back days. And
I'm so tired.
I remember going home like just still in shock, and then lining up that next day, and I had such a bad race. Like, I swim leg was first, and on the way in I swam myself into a hole, and like girls were getting waves beside me, and I just did not have a good, my mindset was off. Like,
the mental element of the sport must be so insane. Like,
and that's been my biggest downfall the last couple of years.
And also the mental, so you mentioned like you had all that disbelief, just the energy that takes up when you're meant to be recovering as well. So like, you finish the race, you've got to race the next day, you need to sleep, recover. Your head's still like that, your brain so is wired, just draining all this energy from it. So then after that like poor result, I was like, yes, this is where you really should be. Like, I was like, okay, cool. So yesterday was 100% a fluke. Like, back to square one. Like, I was so devastated. I think just more so because I'm such a people pleaser. It's like my family and friends are here, and you've just blown it. Like,
like it's so crazy because you like won your first ever, your debut race, but that's what you'd attach to like the second day. And like, wow.
Yeah. So I feel like for me, I'd always looked at those like negatives and like how like, oh, that's cool that I won, but it's like, well, you've failed like that second race.
Wow.
Like, what are you doing? So then the next, it was like a couple of weeks later, we had another round 3 and 4, and that was down in Newcastle. And throughout all of this as well, I never celebrated like any of my wins, and that's something that I haven't done in my career. Like, I just go, oh, that's cool. Like, I did well, but all that hard work, it was always like, just what's on next, what's going to the next one, on that constant, like, you just have to keep, I think it's an athlete mindset. And that's something that I definitely do now, is like, if have had like little tiny wins in my day, I'll be like, oh girl, like, pat on the back, you're doing so good. And that's something that I have not done, and am definitely doing a lot more of at the moment, just to help that foster that beautiful mindset. So
you probably never lived in the present moment throughout that whole thing.
Ever. It was that constant what's ahead. So I went into that Newcastle round constantly still happy and enjoying myself because I liked my squad, and my family from New South Wales had travelled up to watch me. So I was seeing my family, like my nan and pop were there, my mum was there, just being around. That's the biggest thing for me, is my little family bubble and my little network.
Your support network.
My little support network. So I'm super lucky. Like, I'm really close. I've spent most of my life on the road with my family. So to me, that's like my little comfort safe zone. So have them there is like, oh, I love it. So I went into that next race. I remember sitting the day before. They tell you the day before what format you're doing. So sometimes it can just be one individual race. Sometimes it can be 3 races back to back, where they'll drop the bottom 5 people every time you run through. It's like an eliminator, or sometimes an M shape. So that's my favorite, because you go in and out of the surf so many times, and because I feel I've got good surf skills, that plays in my favor.
Yeah.
So I remember sitting there in the room, and they randomly draw it out, and they're like, okay, so this time, the first one, I can't remember what it was. It was just like a eliminator, accumulator. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And the Sunday is going to be an M shaped. I was like, yes, like this is for me. I was like, yes, there better be surf. So I was like stoked. So going that first day, I think I finished 6th or 7th maybe from memory, and I was super happy with that. I was like, yep, stoked, because I think that for that series I may have qualified 9th. So I was like, if I can finish 9th or better in any of these races, like that's huge. Like,
and
I'll
does
take
that mean
that
you
away.
because if you finish the end of the series at a certain point, you automatically qualify for the next year?
Yes. Yeah. So for me, I was like, huge. It's like, yeah, girl, like you're back in it. Like, look, don't worry about that last race. Like you, it's all good. Like I was really actually happy with that result, because I was like, maybe the winning wasn't a fluke. I was like, maybe we are going quite well. And like looking back now, I was like, oh my gosh, I was doing so much training. Like I don't know why I wasn't more confident and believed in myself.
I
was like, seriously. Yeah. So then heading into that next day, I was so excited, and I can't remember the order, but I remember coming in on the ski, and we'd just gotten jagged on, which I guess is a surf term, where if you're leading and the back markers get a wave on you, so then we all bring the whole field up together. So I'd just been jagged on, and I was like, damn it, I've done all this hard work, and I was going so well. And then I can't remember what leg, but I ended up breaking away from the pack, and I was like, all right, girl, like we've got this, just keep calm, like just do what you've always done, and I feel like that's where I am best, or race best, is when I'm calm, level-headed, and just go with the flow. Like you're in the zone, you're in that flow. Everything seems to work for you.
It's like flow state. Have you
flow state?
Yeah,
yes.
you're in flow state.
Yeah, you just channel that, and everything seems to work. Like the surf's in your favor. It's such a beautiful state to be in, and that's kind of what I've chased the last couple of years. But yeah, to be back in, I guess, to be in that, it's just super special. So then I remember coming away with that win, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I've done it again. Like what? Maybe it's not a fluke, but was super happy because family were there to experience
that
it.
would have been amazing to have like your people there for that moment.
Man, it was super cool. And then I feel another hard thing was the girl, Geordie Mercer, who I'm not too sure if you guys know, but she's really good at surf, has always had
comes from a surf family.
Family, and I think talking to her afterwards and throughout the years, it's kind of similar where you have those parents and that expectation. I guess for her it's so much harder because her family were in Surf Life Saving, and my mum was pool swimming, so there wasn't as much pressure. Like even a funny story, like the first time I ever got in like the paper, it was like Kirsty Higgison, like daughter of like Olympic swimmer, makes series, but her worst leg is swim leg. Like just some like random comment. I was like, oh, I finally made like I actually think they spelled it Kirsty Higginson, like just spelt it wrong, and I was like, oh, typical. Like just
way to rain on my parade.
So just stuff like that. So but she had a bad race, so I never celebrated. Like I was never happy. I was like, oh man, my teammate just had a bad race. Like, oh, that sucks. Like I remember the bus ride back to the airport, and everything was just so quiet and just disheartened because the teammate had a bad race, and I was like, oh man, I just won. But it's hard because I never
you should like
never celebrate it.
Yeah, prioritize someone else's feelings, because you're like you just achieved your second win of the series.
Yeah.
But you was like, I don't want to celebrate this because I don't want to make my teammate feel bad because she had a bad race. Like that's a really beautiful place to come from. Yeah.
Just never. Yeah, I just didn't want to. I feel like rubbing it in, or just kept myself quiet.
Very
I was just
humble,
I guess, but also like too much so where it was like I was so critical where I was like I can't be happy for myself.
Yeah.
Do you think that could have been like, although that you had that intention of, you know, being not wanting to rub it in the face, which I don't think it would come across as that.
Right now, no way.
Do you feel like that's can sometimes be a bit of a crutch or a projection, or like an excuse, like I can't celebrate because this happened?
No, I just think I was just so critical and just trying to be. I remember. Funny those things where you just go back and you're like, okay, I remember one time back at home in Culburra, and Dad was talking about I don't know if you guys know the Wrights, like Owen Wright, Tyler Wright, like really good surfers. Yeah, so growing up with them, and I remember listening to Dad talk to one of the guys saying, Owen Wright, like he's just cracked the world circuit and he's just so humble, and like how cool it is to be humble, and thinking in my head like, okay, if I ever do well, like I have to be humble. But for me, humble was like never celebrating wins.
Yeah.
Like, I took it to the extreme.
It's extreme.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, almost sounds like you were like, it's this, I think it can easily happen to people with people-pleasing tendencies and wanting things to be harmonious. You just dim your shine, or like you like dim your light and for everyone else. Because like, I don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable because I've done really well. Yeah. But it's actually, it's actually super inspiring. Like you've done the work. You've trained hard, like you've been disciplined. Easy. Yeah,
no way.
And it's truly actually like inspiring for others. So like your success should inspires more success from others. Yeah.
I wish I had that mindset.
Yeah, no,
I definitely didn't. Yeah.
Do you feel like you have that mindset now, or are you still working on it?
Still working on it. 100% still working on it because it's been ingrained in me for so long. It's so hard to change that unconscious mindset. So I guess finishing off that year with 3 wins, like it was just, I remember crossing the line my final race and just breaking down with tears because I just didn't think I would do it. It was like a huge weight off my shoulder. I was like, oh my gosh, I finally did what I've always wanted to do, like actually race my dream. Like it was just years of just like pent up just emotion just poured out. I remember their cry. Coach came to me, he's like, oh, don't cry, because I'd just missed out on making, it was like a eliminator round. So they took, I think, 4 or 5 into the final, and it was a sprint finish, and I just missed out making. A coach thought I was upset about that. And he's like, oh, don't cry about that. And I was like, no, like, I'm just so happy.
These are tears of
joy. Like, it was just emotion, like just upwelling all this stuff, I guess, that I've just carried for years. And then from there, being on that huge high to going for like the lowest of lows within a matter of like, I guess, days, weeks, or months, was just, the contrast is huge. So that next weekend, in hindsight, I wish I had stayed with my family, gone back up home, had some time off, like a week or 2 off, just to go just to celebrate. Like just take time away. This has been your life for the last however many years. You deserve a break. But instead I went back down to Culburra, saw my friends and family, and that trained. And that next weekend we had to race. And it was the worst. Like I was hating, I didn't want to be there, having the pressures of like, you've just done so well in the series, now you have to race again. Like,
and feeling those
expectations. I remember crying, calling mum and dad, crying on the phone, like, I don't want to be here. Like, and then having to people please, like, I have to do these races, but I don't want to do the races. Like, I don't want to be here. Like, just, it was horrendous. And at that same time too, because it was so close between, I guess, Geordie and I. So Geordie, my teammate, she won the series. Yeah. So having that close, I guess, competition between her, I had a lot of people come up to me like, oh, it's so good you got second, but man, I wish you'd won. Or like, oh, you were so close.
Just projecting this stuff onto you.
Constantly projecting, and me being a people player taking it all on. I was like,
I've let everyone down.
Yeah, I was like, oh, maybe they are right. Like, I've just achieved something so cool, but oh man, yeah, I was like so close. Like, oh, damn. And I became super deflated and took it all on and just was just like a mess pretty much. And I remember talking to Geordie like a couple of weeks later, we were training together, and she's like, how do you feel? I was like, I feel crap. And she's like, oh, I feel like crap too. Like, we were both on the biggest lows because we had poured so much into it. And for me, I just kept training, just going back and doing the same thing. And mentally, I was just kaput. I ended up getting pneumonia a couple of months, or must have been like a month or 2 later, and I was sick as a dog. Like, it took me 6 plus longer months to get over it, like to the point of getting up in the bed, out of bed, and trying like even hang out washing in the morning. Like, I couldn't, I was like bedridden. I couldn't do it. Just deflated, so sick. And we had our national championships on at that time, and I couldn't do it. I had to pull out because I was just so sick. And even that, like, not finishing off the season with our nationals was just crappy. And then from there, it was had snowballed. Like, I wish, looking back in hindsight, it's great. How good is that? That's amazing. Yeah, it was. I was seeing a wonderful sports psychologist prior to that, who helped me go through all that stuff with Mooloolaba, and she was my savior. Like, I'd gone through some times where it was extremely, extremely low. Like,
I'm so glad you had like a support, like your family you were living with, and like like your sports psychologist, like those people, like the shining lights, like pull you through those like really dark times.
Is like, I'm so thankful. Like without her, I like don't want to say I probably wouldn't be here. Like I was in such a dark place going through those days in Mooloolaba. Like I remember just breaking down, but forcing myself to go training. Like I should have had a break. Like just crazy. Like even to the point we had one day where I was just an absolute wreck, and I had one girl come up to me in the showers and just go off at me. Like, I was trying to support you, message you. Like, I don't know why you're not replying, and just like hysterically crying and going home and just being like, I can't live like this anymore. Like I'm such a mess. Like that was so toxic, and living through that and then wanting to give up the sport. So just before I qualified for the series that season, so that I ended up qualifying at like the end of February. So about that August, or maybe even later, September, October, I was like, I'm giving up the sport. Like I can't do this. I'm in such a state. And then just going, oh, well, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing and pushing through it. But at the same time, I was like having crazy breakdowns. Like I was in such a state before my race, like mentally, but because I've done so much training, your body just goes into like autopilot, and
it just knows what to do.
It just knows what to do. And I had ended up winning the qualifying series, but mentally was just like
I think it's so incredible,
which is crazy.
It's so incredible what you achieved, considering like imagine
what you could have done if you
I know, that's what I mean. Like just stuff like that. But looking back now, like I'm so lucky and thankful. Like that's the way I find I look at it. It's like such a growth, and like having to go through that pain, so then you feel that joy. I am so thankful. Like it just made me such a more resilient person. So that's why I was super lucky for my psychologist. She worked with me and we got through that, and that's where I had that fantastic season. And then from there, after I'd finished that and was in such a hole, instead of going back to my psychologist and like working through this, I was just stuck in a rut. I ended up getting a call from one of the coaches down here on the Gold Coast, Zane Hemmel, who coaches at Surfers Paradise. He's like, what are you up to? What are you doing? Do you just want to come down for a paddle and just train with us and just try something different? Because I just didn't want to go back to surf. Like I'd had enough. I couldn't keep doing it. I was mentally blip. So then I came down here, I went for a paddle. I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. This is amazing. So I kind of ran away from my problems. I came down, my beautiful partner, Ryan, he's like, I'll come with you, like move down here. So we both moved down here together. And even that in itself, like moving out of home, again, pretty much, I was independent for the first time. Living with your partner, like even that in itself
is another challenge.
Is another challenge. And moving unis, like I shifted my uni down, so I was still studying high school PE teaching on the sunny coast, and I moved down here and continued my studies and was working on the beach lifeguarding. So between those three things, like crazy. And it was just like, I just never took time to even go, man, like pat on the back, you're doing so well.
So that's like, and another crazy thing, like you guys, that again, is it makes surf life saving so incredible. A lot of you guys work jobs on top of your insane training regimen,
and then some people volunteer doing like surf life saving.
On top of that, it's like it's just like next level, like
time management
and commitment.
And then I just study on top of that as well. It was like
it's just like mind blown. Like,
and I think that's what's kind of got me into that dark hole as well. It's just like
overdoing things.
Overdoing it. You're constantly in that state, that stress. You're putting stress on yourself physically, mentally, like emotionally, spiritually. Like every element is constantly in that stress and it cannot be sustained. And that's what happened to me. So that next, say 5 years, I had like, I'm up to my 5 quad tears. I've done like back, concussion, rib break, nose break. I've had ligament done in my ankles. I've had like, you name it.
Your body's just falling apart.
Completely falling apart. Like I've had sickness, like constantly sick and run down but having that, I can't stop. Like I have to keep going. Like I've got to please all these different people.
You really think it was all driven from like trying to keep everyone happy. Yes. But that person always changes.
Yes. And then emotionally being so dark and hard on yourself. And if anyone's kind of experienced living through that like depression, anxiety, it's constant, and it like creeps in and it slowly starts festering and just taking over to the point where you don't question yourself. Like your thoughts are truths. Like you tell yourself these things and you're like, that's truth.
And then your thoughts then become the driver and you're just following in the passenger side.
Yeah. And it was just the last sort of 5-6 years have been so hard, like mentally and physically, so tough. But I've just kept going.
So do you think
just
that,
kept
like,
going?
All of this, because you've mentioned, like, you know, your anxiety, your depression, like your mind's just, you know, being in this overdrive and this stressor. Do you feel that you were ever like taught or like in the sport itself, like being geared with the tools to like have resilience or like to cope with your mental health, or is it just been like a focus on the training?
No, there's no tools.
Yeah.
It's all just, for me, I was lucky where I had that sports psychologist.
But that was a bit later on though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
that wasn't. And you've been training for like a long time.
There's been it's just that constant old school mentality where it's like survival of the fittest. Yeah, like whoever lasts the longest, you'll be the best.
Yeah, and that's so not sustainable. Especially with the amount of stress and things that you put on. Like, I suppose that's what separates the, you know, being able to be a long-term athlete, because, you know, you might have the body and the fitness and things to happen, but if your mind's not right and if you're constantly in that fight or flight, like you said, your body's just breaking down. Yeah. And so, wow, what an opportunity there is now in this, I suppose, in the sport, if there could be some sort of integration with you know, resilience training, stress management and things. Yeah.
I feel like now there kind of is, just the way the sport's going, it's lost a lot of funding, I guess, so there's not as much opportunity for I guess earnings. So people are looking for different avenues, like people are working and they're trying to learn this balance, so there is more, I guess, of that focus, I guess, of assisting people with different things going on. Coaches are becoming more aware of it, like where back in the day people were earning so much money off this sport, when now it's not. So sport coaches are going to have become adaptive and trying to cater for these needs, which is awesome. But at the same time, it's like there are some coaches that still are in that old school mentality, like glory days, which is sweet. But for me, as like a person who has already, I guess, quite, I don't know, already had those like limiting beliefs, and then being thrown into that environment, it was. Yeah,
because you mentioned before, it's like you are still the, you know, the human, the girl, the woman.
Yep, and I never saw of it like that. And then also trying to fit in was been a huge part of my life. Like moving out of home and having my little, you know, your close little network community, and then moving somewhere totally different. I didn't fit in with the people I was training with because my morals did not align with theirs. Like I was not a toxic person. I really struggled. I like different things, like my music. They used to laugh about the kind of music I listen to.
What music's that?
Oh, it's just like
please say Spice Girls.
No, it's just a weird variety, like a lot of heavy stuff, just different.
One song, one band.
Like DZ Death Rays and like
actually, you might fangirl. Matt band opened for DZ Death Rays last year in Europe.
Matt, if anyone doesn't know, is Danny's partner.
So
what's the band? What's his band's name?
Wolves.
That's right.
So sick. Yeah, so like Amity, Affliction, like just heavier stuff, but then also like love, like just such a vast.
To be honest, it was probably just more just like you said, the conflicts of interest and like a pack mentality can be really brutal sometimes. So it's like anything different is like a target for them.
It's like such a little softie, like a soft little country girl.
Marshmallow.
Yeah. And I think too, and then outside of it, I was like, well, I find it so hard to fit in there. Like I'll try and fit in outside. So I tried to make friends, like just, looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like go me. I used to like rock up to just gigs solo, or just like go surfing and meet randoms out in the surf and make friends with them. Yeah. And I was like, like huge pat on the back. It's so big for someone who was quite shy and very reserved.
Really out of your comfort zone.
Huge out of the comfort zone. And that's how I ended up making friends. And then them having the view that Iron men and women were so pretentious, and I used to downplay. I was like, oh, I'm going, I would never say I was going training or would never play. Oh, yeah, I kind of do a little bit of surf. Like I would never say like, oh yeah,
I'm in the Nutri-Grain Ironman series.
Because I just wanted to fit in. Yeah. Or they're like, oh, you're going training. Oh, it's such a loser. Like just like subtle little comments like that obviously they didn't mean anything. But for me, I was like,
they're not athletes, so they don't understand.
No, they don't understand. I think growing up, especially too in a small country town, like no one really understood how much training and what I was doing after school, after hours, like pouring my life into that, and then like not getting invited to like little things like that really kind of added up for me, because all I wanted to do was just fit in. Like that's what human nature, like people just want to fit in, fit in. And so I just felt like I wasn't fitting in. And then moving down here, it was like, oh, trying to fit in again. And just when now I've just come a full 180 and I was like, I love like who I am. I'm fully embracing myself and going, man, like I love being unique. Like I'm so quirky beautiful. And like I love that about people. Like I look for people and like think, oh, they're so quirky, that's so cool. Like I love creative people. Like I love getting to know people. And I'm like, why don't you look at yourself like that? Like crazy. Yeah.
Maybe so it sounds like you are starting to see yourself like that.
But I think having this season off has been like the best thing for me. Like so
this is the first season that you've had off.
Yes. So it's been, what actually happened was I had a lot of ongoing injuries. Like it just snowballed, like constant snowball.
You moved to surfers. When did you move down to surfers?
So I moved to surfers, would have been 5 years ago. I think we've been here now, 5 years ago. So I moved there. I was there for 3 seasons. Did pretty well, like competitive, considering how much other stuff I had going on in my head, like dealing with that, and then all the other like work and study and
it sound like a lot of injuries as well in between.
Trying to deal with that. It was tough, and at that stage there weren't too many female athletes, so I didn't really have any team events to go in. So I was quite unhappy where I was mentally as well, so I made the decision to move to Northcliffe to be in complete contrast, like a girl only squad, like it was just like really highly competitive, so kind of back to like my Lullaby days again, but I go along well with a lot of the girls, so it was fun. It was like super high competitive, but at the same time, like mentally I was still very going through stuff. So being in that environment and in that constant competitiveness, it's not good for me mentally, because you're constantly comparing yourself to these girls. Like these are the girls that I'm racing, and I'm constantly racing, like at training it was like racing all the time. And then it
can't show any weakness.
It's like constant. And I think towards the back end of the season there was a lot of tension between some of the girls, and I had had enough, and then COVID happened. So a lot of the events got cancelled.
And you were just like, thank God.
Like, it was crazy, because I was like, should I be sad about this? Because I'm actually happy. Like my body was like, thank you so much. I honestly had the worst season results wise. And if I had a bad result, it'd just spiral. And then I'd mentally go so hard on myself. Then again, it was like it just kept snowballing, and I was having breakdowns before, like proper shaking breakdowns before races, like going to be sick, like couldn't move. Like during racing I was in such a state, I felt weak. Like it was just I don't know how I went through that year. Like I had breakdowns on the beach. Like I was just in such a it's pretty heavy to look back. So I had, after COVID happened, I was like, I'm going to move clubs to Currumbin. Like my sister's partner and all, his family are in Currumbin. It's more of a family club, back to country roots. So for me, it was like my biggest thing is my environment. So if my environment is thriving, it's happy, I feel comfortable and safe, I'm going to do well. So for me, moving into that environment again, yes, it was a huge change, but it's what I needed. I needed that. I needed to take the foot off the accelerator. Like I needed a break. And then just still injuries, and mentally I was so burnt out. Like I was depleted. I couldn't go any further. Like just, it was hectic, but I still forced myself, and I'm a huge believer in the universe gives you
a sign.
And like like everything happens for a reason. I sustained a severe concussion, we had huge big C's at training. And it's funny, I've got my diary here because I journal a little bit. Yeah. But that day at work, I was working, so I work lifeguarding on the beach. Yeah. And I was working at Northcliffe, and that was the first time that I'd been back at Northcliffe since leaving the club. So I was in such a mess. I was crying at work in the car
so anxiety inducing.
Anxiety
Your
inducing.
body just remembered the stress.
It was the stress. It was like almost PTSD. Like I was just sitting there like, constantly in a state. So then that I wrote in my diary because I was like, I have to. I just started journaling, and I was like, just trying to get the stuff out of my head to pen to paper. And so funny, I wrote it like this afternoon, like maybe something will trigger me, like getting smashed in the big surf. Like actually had written it. And that afternoon we got to training and it was huge surf, and I was like, oh man, it's solid. Like where we were on the bank, it was shallow, it was big. I was like, oh, this is a disaster waiting to happen. For me, the young guys, like they're at that age where they're just risk taking. Yeah. And for me, I always just try and stay away from people like that. I was like, I'm just going to do my thing. Like I hate craft getting damaged. Anyway, so as I was paddling back out, a big set had come through, and I saw one of the kids take off on this wave, and I was like, oh man, that's so big. I don't think he's going to make the drop. Anyway, so I had turned my back. So I was going to catch the whitewash, knowing if he was going to let go of the board, I didn't want it to hit my face. So I was like, it's best to hit my back. But what actually had happened was he'd let go of his board. The board shot across and like ricocheted off my board and smacked me like fair in the head.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's the 18-kilo board?
I think it's like 6 or 7, but still it was like...
You're in like huge gnarly surf.
Yeah. And I was just super lucky where I don't remember any of it. I remember that getting hit in the face. I don't remember anything after that. So I was lucky that I was able to still hold onto my board, because looking back now, if I was to let go, there's probably a chance. How did you get back?
So you just maybe your body just kicked in and just held onto the board.
It knew what to do.
Yeah.
So I managed to sort of hold on or ride the rest of the wave in. Or I was talking to the lifeguard there. He saw it happen, even my coach, and they were like, man, we saw you got hit. This is not good. Like the lifeguard was ready to run out, and they saw me like fumble around, get on the board and continue back to shore. I don't remember any of it. I remember getting to the shore and I was just feeling like sick, and I remember trying to stand up. I couldn't stand, so I just collapsed in the water, and they come running down, and my coach tried to give me a thumbs up, and I couldn't even move my arm, and they're trying to had to like pick me up, carry me out of the water, and I just like collapsed and was just blacking out on the beach. And they're like asking me questions, and I couldn't remember like my age, like it was just heavy. And I was just super lucky that I was even able to rescue myself, I guess.
I'm so glad you got into the shore.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Super lucky, because there's probably a good chance that I probably wouldn't be here. Like just stuff like that is just like so heavy. Drowning. Yeah, because it's happened in our sport. So then from there, we went to hospital. I had a huge gash on my head, so they glued it together. And then I went home that night, and the next day my face was like so swollen. It's classic. It's like just my nose was like bent, my like eyes are puffy, like, and from then on it was just that next like 4 months was just hell. Like I literally thought, I just thought it'd be like a week of headaches. It was like 2 months of headaches, constant vertigo. So vertigo was horrendous. It was terrible. Like no sleep, constantly forgetting things. Brain overload was huge. So if I'd start using my brain too much, it'd just shut down. I'd have breakdowns. I'd just forget things. It was so hard. And for someone, I guess, being at uni as well, you're constantly using your brain. And
so do you have to like, you deferred uni? Like,
so that stage
you had to take a break of everything.
Yeah, that stage I was literally in the middle of exams or coming up to exams. So we just emailed and said, look, we're going to have to defer because I'm not in physical.
Sustained a head injury.
I literally thought it was going to be like a week or two. And funny thing was, like a couple months before, I ended up having Bell's palsy. So my face went a little bit droopy. So we had booked in.
So that happened before the concussion?
Before the concussion.
Your body was telling you
it was something. Yeah.
Listen.
It was heavy. I actually thought I was having a stroke at work, and my face started to go funny. I felt really funny. I was like, oh man, this is heavy. I'm having a stroke at work. But it was just my anxiety. I was constantly having like panic attacks. So I was like in the middle of having a panic attack and Bell's palsy. We went and saw the doctor. So we went and got an MRI. And it came back, we had to go see a neurologist because there was stuff on the scan. And it was like a 3-month wait. So in the meantime, I had this concussion, had gone back and at the same time seen the neurologist. And I was like, oh, by the way, I've also had a concussion. So she was like looking at me with that too. And she's like, yeah, it's a really long process, concussions. Like it take a while. Don't be hard on yourself. And that was the hardest thing for me to learn was coming from a sports background. Like I don't take time off. Like that's been my biggest downfall is not having time off. So having to learn that and being okay with that.
And that's actually like, it's
so
actually
hard.
It was the thing for your recovery. It's like, so to get better,
you have to do nothing.
You have
the universe was like,
what do you mean do nothing? No,
she's not going to have a break. We're just going to hit her in the ball.
The universe, for God's sake, got this woman.
We've just given you Bell's palsy and panic attacks, and
like,
now we've just thrown a board in your face.
I know.
Just listen to us.
I was like, you've bloody broken your rib, you've done your knee, you've done quad tears. Like when, what's going to stop us? Like actually, let's just knock her out and maybe she'll stop.
Man, you got some willpower.
So I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to have to stop. So it was so hard for someone who's constantly using their brain and likes being sharp to being dopey and it was so hard. There was one day just leading into Christmas I was like, I might do some Christmas shopping. Like even learning to drive again was hard. Like constantly being afraid that something was going to happen. Like even that next day, so Dad came down early that morning so he could take care of me, staying at home because my partner, he's a carpenter and he's super, super busy. Bless his soul. Dad, we went down to the beach. So I was sitting because I didn't want to go on the water. I remember sitting on the beach and watching Dad go in the water and having a panic attack, like he's going to drown, like someone stop him. Full flashbacks, crying, going like, don't go in the water, like Dad, don't do it, like you won't come back, and going, oh my God, like what's happening, like having moments.
How long
of
ago was
happened.
this?
So this is one day after the accident.
Yeah, okay. Which was how long ago?
Was October last year.
Yeah, right. So it's just over a year ago.
Just about a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you haven't trained since then?
Yes.
You haven't?
I have.
Oh, you have?
I want to come back.
Oh,
yeah. So, just like little things like that and going to like, I remember going to Robina shopping centre and then coming out of a shop and not knowing where I am, how I got there, what am I doing, having a meltdown, trying to call people to say like, I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm like. Your brain is just, it was incredible. It's like going through that rehab was hard, like tough. And then especially for someone who loves being in big surf and then now being scared of it, it's like, what? So having to be comfortable again in those challenging situations is, I'm getting better, but we're putting like little boundaries in place to help. Like if I feel uncomfortable, it's like, it's okay. You don't have to go out. Like when before it's like, you have to go out.
Wow. So it's like, it's really taught you to be kind to yourself and like
so
really
kind.
honor that.
Yeah.
So that's nice to know that like, I just like, if you are feeling really tired one day, go, I'm going to have the day off to recover.
Yeah.
So I can train harder tomorrow or like listen to my body. Yeah.
So
I think
so cool to see that you've expressed that you've had so much compassion and kindness for other people. Now you're actually bringing it back to yourself.
Like my cup is so empty. It's like, okay, we're time to fill her up.
Yeah.
So I think a huge turning point for me too was we went down to my sister's birthday, which was November. So it had been like 4 weeks after I had the accident. So I was still quite an acute stage. Yeah. And brain overload was huge, a big thing. So anything light, so a lot of stimulants would send me over the edge and I'd have like a breakdown panic attack. And my brain couldn't, it was horrendous. So I'd gone through the first night and was an absolute mess. Like couldn't deal. They put me to bed and I was like hysterically crying for hours and everyone was out partying and no one knew. And I couldn't sleep. So I'd spent pretty much the whole night awake crying, like just in such a bad state. That next day, it was just still same thing again. I went for a swim. I was like, just get in the ocean, do your thing, like keep calm. Couldn't do that. Like I was still in this little fight or flight stage. And that afternoon, I was just like in such a bad way. My sister's like, you just got to go home. Go home, you're such a bad way. Thankfully had called Mum and Dad and said, you've got to get down here now. They're dropping Kirsty home. They're at Cabarita at that stage. My partner was driving me home and I was like hysterical. And thankfully Mum and Dad weren't too far off. My partner had dropped me off at home by myself, which anyway, I was like, had gone into my room and was just like in fetal position, like just in such a state to the point where I was like, just, it was heavy, like so many thoughts going through my head. It was like a little bit heavy. How heavy did we go? I was like knocking, anyway, so I was like hitting my head on the wall, trying to like black myself out because I could not deal with.
It was just so much.
Too much, so overwhelming. My negative thoughts in my head. I was like, I can't be here anymore. I can't deal with this. Like, I can't switch my thoughts off. Like, it is so bad. Mum and Dad had just arrived. Thank God they pulled in, and I was in a state. So it was all good. So that night or that weekend, they ended up staying with me until my partner got home, and then that was like the massive turning point. I was like, you cannot live like this anymore. Like, you are in such a bad way. So from then to where I am now, I've just like took time off, and even accepting that, like, you have to have time off. But in my head, I'm like, I still have to train and do the series trials. Like, you still have to compete. Like, it was just this two differing views, like constantly having that battle. So after making that decision, I was like, okay, we're going to have this season off. Like, I have to, like, for my health, like, I had to have that season off, which was, I can't even believe that I was questioning racing. Like, wild. So then from there, I was super thankful. One of where I do my chiropractor, the beautiful Kate, who runs behind the desk there, she's like, have you thought of like doing hypnotherapy? I was like, well, no, not really. And she's like, oh, this beautiful person, Tessa, I can give you her when you feel it's time. Maybe you should just try something new. And I've always been open up to different things.
It's like such a beautiful way of like pitching it to you, like when you feel you're ready. Like, that's so nice.
You decide when you make the decision.
Which has been the most beautiful thing. So it took me like a couple of months, and I finally like, just give it a try. And since then, it's just been the best thing for me.
Oh,
like,
that makes me so happy for you.
Yeah.
So you found your magic potion.
That's it. Yeah. And it's been like just something so different, but so calming. And that's what I've needed. I feel just that nurturing. So this last like 6 months, I've literally just been nurturing myself and doing what I want to do and saying yes to things that I want to do, and
that have nothing to do with sport.
Nothing to do with sport. I literally had time off, and I was like, oh my gosh, life is actually so good outside of sport. Like, having fun and going, like, not feeling playing and not feeling guilty about missing training or sleeping in, or like, that's huge, because there's always been that constant guilt over my head and like learning to just let go of that. So yeah, the last like couple, I guess 6 months have just been fun, like learning about myself and growing. So I've been back training now, which has been fun, having that different approach and being in Currumbin and being in that super fun.
You found your environment?
Yeah, there's like, you're so far away from, I feel like up this northern end, there's a lot of competitiveness, and being away from that, it's so nice. Like, there's no, you're not comparing yourself because you're not seeing them. I've got uni, so I've been able to focus on that and having time doing that and enjoying work and not putting pressure on myself to do certain things. It's like, cool, I have time to that. Yeah, I'll do that. Like, do I feel like doing that? No, I don't. So I won't pressure myself. Which has been like super cool.
And hypnotherapy, I've never done it. Can you walk us through like what a session of hypnotherapy is like?
Yeah. So it's pretty literally like just a guided meditation. That's all it is. It's like, it's a meditation with a focus point. That's all it pretty much is.
They take you into a bit of a trance.
Yeah, so it's a trance pretty much. So you literally lie there. The first couple of times, it's, I guess you don't necessarily go into trance because your body's still like, what's going on? And your brain's like, I don't know if this is good. But it's just really calm and beautiful. And that's what I like about it. It's not invasive. You literally lie there, and then she'll talk you through different, like, I guess like literally a meditation. You're going through different things, you're seeing different things, and there'll always sort of be a focus. So for me, there'll be certain objects. So I know for me, when I see a circle, it's calmness. So if I feel a bit flighty, I find a circle, calmness, little things like that.
It's like, and it's giving you like tools,
little anchors, little
so
tools.
Cool.
And then she'll give you a recording, and you literally have that recording. So if I have at home and have time, I'll just put a recording on and just little things like that. It's just calm. And that's what I've always needed, because I feel like a lot of the time I've just never had like calmness. It's always been go, 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 go. So,
it's such a contrast to like your training regimen and like even just the nature of the sport. It's so
Yes.
Go.
So
like,
go,
so
go.
yang. Yeah.
So yang. And then because my head's always been in that intent, it's just that, it was that perfect storm.
Wow.
So have you concrete of like when your next race is?
So we've got the series trials the weekend before Christmas.
Okay.
I think it's pretty well official, border dependent, whether or not it's still unsure. But yeah, it's fingers crossed it still goes ahead. It's like the weekend before Christmas, which is, I think it's like the 18th of December, which is super cool. So I think it's like 6-7 weeks away.
Are you just training as much as you were before?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
I'm trying to build that base back.
Yeah.
But I'm trying not to put intense pressure on myself. Like, you need to be back 2 to 3 sessions a day. Like my body can't handle that. I've just had like a year off.
Yeah. And your nervous system as well.
Still, my nervous system still like
building and repairing.
I've had like 10 years of just that.
Yeah,
so
like depleting.
So depleting. So it's going to take a long time to get back to feeling fantastic, like that beautiful inner child. Like, I want to start feeling that again. And it's been wonderful, like actually to feel feelings of that beautiful love and joy again, and like going, oh my gosh, this is like back to childhood, how I used to feel, like that beautiful innocence, like feeling that again. Oh, like so cool.
So how do you think you're going to maintain that? Because going from, always putting like pressure on yourself to like having to like win, you'll be entering this series and, there's potential that you might not get the place that you did previously. So how are you going to how's your mental game going to be able to handle that?
Oh, challenge. It's going to be my next biggest challenge, I think, for me. I guess the great thing is that I do have uni, so it's something I can take my mind off things. Now uni has finished for the semester. It's kind of, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to focus on results, and I just want to go back to having fun. And that's kind of been the whole goal of this season, is getting back to racing and having fun and enjoying it again. So for me, it's going to be really hard because I've always had that competitiveness. It's like to win.
Yeah.
But for me, if I can just line up on the line and then finish the race and feel good about myself, like, oh, I've won. That for me is huge. So I think I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. I'll keep seeing Tessa, the hypno, and keep doing a bit of that. And just staying out of all that stuff. I know for me personally, social media, I get quite triggered. So I do that unsee or mute. Certain people.
Mute. I think that's really good for your mental state. If you're like, what, if this is creating anxiety for me, at least it kind of give you back a little bit more power. Yeah.
So I just try and stay out of it. So I know I've muted a lot of profiles that I race with, just because mentally, like, I don't want to.
You don't need to see that.
I don't need to see that.
And also, you're like, this is a good thing, like a boundary you're putting in place for yourself. Because you're like, like this is one little thing I can control that is going to make me happier. And can compete better, or like just enjoy it for the love of it.
For the love of it, I don't want to be immersed back into what I just experienced. Like, that's a lot of trauma, and I don't want to live that trauma again. So it's going to be hard, but I'm looking forward to the challenge and the growth again. Like, I love that about life, is just that constant growth.
You've come so far, like, you know, from everything you've gone through to now having this. You can even see it in your eyes, like how joyful and happy you are, and that you're able to talk about what you've experienced as well, which is a massive sign of growth as well.
Oh, that's something that thank you. Something that I'm like so thankful for, is like living through that and coming out the other side. Like, I obviously haven't come through come through it all, but what have I experienced and where I'm at, like, for...
If you could go back to your 10-year-old self, what would you tell her?
I would tell her a lot. Sit down here, Missy.
You're going to get an earful and you're going to listen to it all.
What's one or two things that you would tell her?
Just trust your instinct, like trust your gut. Like, you know what you're capable of. Like, don't listen to anyone else. Like, people can throw things at you and say comments, but it's just a reflection of them and where they're at in your life, and it's not true. Like, you know within yourself. That's, I think, the biggest thing for me, and just enjoy it. Like, honestly, enjoy the ride. Like, life is not about competing. It's about enjoying and experiencing that growth and just living it. Like, I think growing up and having that mindset of wanting to win, it's hard.
It facilitates competition.
Yeah.
And I think it's like really ego driver, isn't it? Because then you're competing in the series and you're competing at uni or competing with like in all these different contexts all of a sudden. Even like, it's interesting. Like I sometimes wonder where the element of competition has come from. Yeah. Because I think it can be a great driver for results. Yes. Like you got to facilitate the right kind of competition. Yeah. Because like I use it in teaching all the time. It's such a great tool. You're like, you want to get everyone doing what you want? Yeah. Create a competition.
Let's race.
And all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm in. But it's always like, I think if you find the intention behind what the competition's about, that's when you're onto something. Because then it's like, oh, what is like it actually about? What are we actually competing for here?
And when it doesn't,
what's it driven by?
When it doesn't consume your life
as
well.
Yeah.
So it's like it's okay to be competitive in some aspects, but then if that's the only thing you're thinking about, and then I think that comes back down to your nervous system and understanding that, and then also strengthening your resilience muscle, because in competition someone's got to lose, and so being able to handle and how to bounce back from that loss is, I think, the opportunity for people to really strengthen.
I feel like in society just in general, like there's just that constant drive to win and do your best in every aspect of your life. Like it's so it's not realistic. It's so unrealistic. Like for me, it's like I just had to do the best at work. I had to get high distinctions at uni. I had to win serious races. Like, who's capable?
Yeah. Like, I'm not a robot.
Yeah. It's like, I just think it's like society. Like everyone has to be the best and be perfect.
Yeah. That perfectionism trait.
But it's like so beautiful to be authentic. And when you have these moments where you aren't winning, you're growing. Like if you're not winning, you're growing. For me, even if you are winning, you're growing too. Like it's okay to lose or like feel like you are losing or failing. To me, it's like it's an opportunity for growth and like learning more about yourself.
Yeah, it's that lesson, and it's like you create that adversity, and we speak a lot about adversity. It's like it's important to not be handed everything on a silver platter, to experience, because that's really what shows your true qualities of like how you bounce back from a failure. And I think it's really important to experience that. And I love that saying, like, we're perfectly imperfect.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I love, and that's what I've kind of always loved about people, I guess. And I've sheltered that. So now it's like, hell yeah, bringing it back out.
Yeah.
Working ass. Like, I love it. Like, honestly, like being that authentic and being you is so important. Yeah. Like, so important.
Because it's so tiring just like putting on this like facade of like, I'm perfect. I'm in this like, I'm this perfect little square. Yeah. But really, and I'm like a circle trying into a triangle.
And you have to put a smile on your face. Like you're happy all the time. It's like, no way, man. Like that's not realistic. Like everyone has their down days. Like being okay with that is, that's what I'm loving where I'm at the moment. Is like, it's sweet. Like I'm loving my journey. Like I'm loving where I'm at in my life. Like I love who I am and what I've experienced and what I've grown through, coming from that tiny little country girl, like not having much opportunity thrown at it. Like I've had to work so hard for everything, but that's cool. I love that. Like you line up against people on the line and you see they've been gifted so much, but are they really appreciative? Like, are they really enjoying where they're at? Like, I know for me, it's like, I love it.
Yeah, that's like, the beauty of adversity.
Yeah.
It just like creates this state of gratitude.
Yeah. Because it's like that whole element of having gratitude makes you appreciative of things. But if you're just handed and given something, then you don't have that, the essence and understanding of gratitude. So you're not practicing that on a daily basis. So that's like, a detriment to your life experience. So.
Yeah. And then, so you're studying. I know you're studying to be a teacher because that's how we met. You were on prac at my school.
So fun.
And I suppose when are you going to graduate? Or like, I know obviously timelines might have changed with your injury and stuff like that. So
end of next year. So they've actually like put a deadline because I've been studying for so long. Like you actually have to graduate now or you're going to have to start redoing some subjects. So funny. I think too, because I had ended up having a year off, and then when I moved, like a year off studying, and then when I moved down here, I lost a lot of subjects. So I had to like redo. Yeah, which is a shame, but it is what it is. So yeah, fingers crossed, end of next year.
Yes. I'm so excited for you to get into schools.
Yes.
Like I'm just like, wow, like even like your experience with like recovering from your concussion, it's crazy, the empathy and compassion. You'll fully be able to understand where those kids are who experience cognitive overload. Like and just like 100%. I can't deal because like, I know
able to connect. I like especially I feel like this time round with placement and where I'm at mentally, I was like able to connect so much better with the kids and going, oh, I'm so thankful that I've gone through all those experiences because I'm able to connect a lot better. And yeah, I might not fully understand what they're going through, but on to some degree I'm able to cater for it a little bit better. Yeah. And I loved it. Like this placement was super fun.
So
like,
good.
Just thrown in the deep end and just, learning, constant learning. I think that's why I love it. And you're helping change or like support, nurture these like cute little people.
These little sponges.
That's I think I love it. Just that's all I've always loved and enjoyed, and particularly I've been so fortunate throughout my athlete career being able to work and mentor younger athletes through clinics and within the surf club as well, and that's something that I've always loved doing. So I guess teaching for me, it's like sweet. Yeah. Like it's
like a natural progression.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm excited for you to
thank you.
Like delve into that. Or just especially I know you'll be such a great role model for the kids and like be able to give them so much. So it's really it's such a good thing.
Thank you. Yay.
Yeah. So I suppose I feel like we're kind of like winding up towards the end. Yeah. Did you have any questions, Danny, that's sprung to mind?
No, I got all mine out, I think.
Sweet. Yeah, I feel we're up to the quick fire round then.
Oh, cool.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll let Danny begin.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Alrighty. So we will be doing this with all our guests because you're our first guest.
Oh, yes.
Yay.
So this is my one of my favorites. If you could put a billboard anywhere in the world, where would you put it and what would your message be?
Oh, this is a good one. First thing that comes to mind is like rural communities, because that's where I've been from, like really small coastal towns. Probably like a bit cliche, like chase your dreams or like don't give up.
Oh, that's
or
so
like
cliche.
Just,
that's cool.
I don't know, something like that. Because I know for me, when I was growing up, I didn't have like role models or someone there mentoring me.
Yeah.
But coming from that, like you can, I guess evidence, I guess you could say, or someone that's come from that small coastal
like
town,
you can
like
do it too. Yeah.
Like you can do it too. Like
you
are so capable. I guess maybe you are capable of.
You can do it.
You can do it. Like, you're capable of more than you can know. Like some of those little cliche quotes.
Yeah.
But I'd take it around to like rural areas.
Cool.
Like those smaller communities.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love that. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Oh, I think about this like
I love that this is an active thought of yours.
This is an active thought of mine. It's like, would I like to fly? Like
it can be anything though. Like it can be something,
even like pausing time or like turning back time. But I don't know. I find this one so hard. I always have constant dreams of like, it's just like running and jumping off like a hill and you're like flying. I think that feeling would be pretty cool. Like flow, like that free. So which one are we leaning more towards? Flight or turn back time? Or even talking to animals? Is that like...
Oh, okay.
You could be in the Thornberries.
Yes!
I feel like I would like that superpower more than talking to animals. That would be so cool. Imagine talking to Baxter, Huey and Georgie. And what's your
I don't know.
dog's name?
I'm just like also thinking about what they would be talking about.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, okay, I know. I fed you this morning. You cannot still be talking about food.
Yeah. What's your puppy's name?
Vinny.
Imagine if you could talk to Vinny though.
Oh, he'd be so off me, but oh my God, this woman talks so much. Yeah. So
okay. And mine are a bit more music related. Yes. So first album you ever bought?
Oh. This is such a good question because we grew up listening to a lot of music. Like Like even like Silverchair's Frog Stomp, there's like footage of me of like
So I just
4 years old that Dad's filmed of like me dancing to it. And
so good.
Mum never liked Dad playing it because she's like, it's too heavy for the girls. Like,
and now you love heavy metal.
Now I like heavy metal.
It's like, note, I love DZs.
So I'm not too sure, to be honest. I know my own money, I think it may have been Green Day, American Idiot.
Oh, that's so
That
cool.
was like maybe the
Green
first. That's the first one that comes to mind, but I've got no idea.
Yeah, and it's hard. Like, it's like, when do people don't buy CDs anymore? So like,
I still do. You should see my CD collection.
That's so good.
Like even after school, Nan and Pop used to take us down to like Kmart, and we'd be allowed to buy one single because they were like, was it $4?
Yeah, no,
$4.
And sometimes the good ones, you got like 4 songs on them too, and it's like, you're like,
we had the collection.
Like
and I'm like, oh my god, they've got like a room full of like singles. So I think we bought a lot of music. We were like very.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was super cool.
Your first gig, the first gig you ever went to?
Oh, we went to Powderfinger and Silverchair across the Great Divide,
wow.
which was Mum and Dad took us to that. I don't know how old we would have been. I was maybe still in primary school. I just remember when it first started, like the feeling of like the bass and the music going through you. You're like, oh, this is so cool.
The power of music.
Yeah. Apart from that, probably the Wiggles.
Yeah.
Wiggly fans.
Yeah.
Favorite Wiggle.
Yeah.
Actually, no.
Or did you like Jeff?
I don't know.
I could relate to Jeff a lot more. Like, he's my man. Taking naps.
And I don't know if you saw, but the Wiggles are touring with the DZ Death Race.
Yeah, and Polish Club.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were getting on that then.
I'm very aware of it.
Because I think they started out. I know all this. I know more and more music trivia now because of Matt. And I think Wiggles started out as like a punk band.
Yeah, the Cockroaches.
Yeah, and then they had their other side project, the Wiggles, and then they built a global empire from entertaining children.
And how did Emma left the Wiggles?
I saw.
Well, this is the original Wiggles though.
Okay.
She was, I think she was like, she wanted to spend more time with her family.
Okay.
Yeah.
She can't prioritize other kids' happiness.
Oh, but yeah, so
I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that.
No, I know. But I just was like, oh my gosh, you like DZs and Wiggles, and like
I saw that come up, and I even spoke to my partner Ryan. I was like, man, we have to go.
Because I reckon it'd probably be like they'll do like a Wiggles blend cockroach set. I just want to go out of musical curiosity.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'd be like, I am really curious as to how
are you going to make this happen?
Like an
and also
adult
like
stroke.
And like moshes, I think they'll be happening.
Oh,
because I went
a
to
good mosh.
This year. I got to go see DZ's play at Marquetta just when moshing came back, and like the people moshed.
Was there like surfing?
No, it was just. It was scary, to be honest.
I went to this gig once, and as I was entering into the gig, there was a guy coming back with, coming out of the door with his nose bleeding. And I was like, oh my God, I asked the security guard, what happened? And they're like, they're bloody running death circles. So it's just where you just like run around and like run into each other to the heavy metal.
So fun.
Like,
yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah, that was definitely happening. It's like a few of my mates were in the mosh and they just came out like sweaty messes, like, and they're like, whoa. I'm like, whoa, man, like, do you need to sit down? Like,
just covered in everyone else's sweat. Like, it's just.
I just remember the smells.
The smell. It's wonderful. It's like me, just like that's pretty much all the concerts I go to. Is just like front. Like I used to, especially if my sister came along, I'd like give her my bag, and I'd just run like front and center, like mosh, crowd surfing, I'm even,
running the death circles.
I'm even stage dive. Like I just like full in, like just love that. But I'm now, it's like I've gotten a little older, I've like toned it down a little bit, but just that constant urgency for like, oh, so fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, man, yeah. I need to go to a gig with you then. So I have to be. I like space.
Yes.
I'm not a mosher. Like I like being up there where there's no one else too close to me.
Yeah, I feel like now I've gotten that. I was like, I kind of need my little space.
Yeah.
People are encroaching. Yeah.
Okay, and the song that represents your teenage years.
Oh, this is.
It could be a band.
One.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, teenage years. We listened to so much music. I look back now and go, oh, she's such a cool kid.
Like, yeah, no, I was like, man, you'd been dropping like, man, that's like hella cool, like first album and concert. Whoa.
Yeah. Mine was Tina Arena, I think.
Oh, that's still pretty cool.
Oh, man.
don't know. I just listen to probably DZ. I listen to a lot of Bleeding Knees Club. Teenage years. We had such a even like Wolfmother's first album. Like we listened to a lot of that. Smashing Pumpkins I listened to a lot of. I went through a stage of like year 11 and I was listening to like Red Hot Chili Peppers like Blood Sugar Sex Magic album. Yeah. And like Soundgarden and like Audio Slave. Like just like 90s.
You like
rock-ish.
full 90s grunge.
Yeah, 90s grunge.
Wow.
Loved that. But then also liked really random like electronic and like folk and just such a diverse. So diverse. And the coolest thing was like best friend Belle and her family, like they're super musically gifted. So we grew up like go to their place. They've got like pianos and bass guitars and like double bass some days, like a flute, like drums, like you name it, they've got it because her mother was a music teacher. So growing up in that, like that's my so cool. sister and I have like no music bones in our body. Yeah. Like we are like, oh, here have the tambourine or cowbell, Kirsty. It's like you can do percussion. And yeah. So I think for me, like music was huge, and that's also, I guess, another coping mechanism for me. Is like I love listening to music that makes me feel good, and I feel like at the moment I've been listening to a lot of music during those times where I was quite happy. And like going, oh, I love this song. Like I forgot about this, but it makes me feel so good. Like I think that's something super powerful about music. It can
brings you back to your body
and transport you to these really cool places. I love it. Like would be here without it. Like just that in the ocean. Good combo.
Okay, and if you could get to jump on stage with any act in the world, like you're at their show and they're like, you get up here, girl, who would it be?
Oh, maybe the Greats, like Patience from the Greats. Yeah, she is like, what a woman. Like she's just so fun and vibrant and have so much fun on stage in her sets. Like I'd love to just be up there dancing with her. Like I am a dance enthusiast. Like I am so bad at dancing. Any of my friends could vouch for this, my partner. Like it's so funny because my sister's so good. Like growing up we did like all ballroom dancing, like jazz, tap, ballet, troupe. Like we did all of it. Wow. And I was just there for fun. I was like, oh, who's this big quirky like awkward girl at the back? I was like, oh, it's me. And my sister was so good at it. So I feel like getting up on stage with Patience from the Greats would just be like, oh, godsend.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, we have come to an end now. So thank you so much for like coming here and sharing. Oh my gosh, like so inspiring. Like
thanks, ladies. Sorry, I've already just like talked for so long.
No,
I just get, like on these tangents.
No, like we said, this is a tangent type place. Thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate your time and getting to know you and hearing it. And I just want to wish you a really great return.
Thank you.
And I know you're going to do amazing.
Oh, thank you so much. All the best too with your podcast. Can't wait to listen to it.
We're going to release it at the start of next year.
Yes.
So,
can't wait.
Yes, I'm excited. Though I'm a bit nervous now. I'm thinking like, oh, damn. Now I've actually got to figure out how to like get all the rest of it up. Onto things. But it's a good learning curve.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
If you loved what you heard today and want to hear more, then don't forget to head over to your chosen platform of choice and subscribe so you can hear more of It's Glow Time.